Sounds great.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. It is Thursday, August 8th at 5:05, and I will call to order the Board of Selectmen meeting. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and will be available on our town's YouTube page. So we're going to go right into item agenda number 1, presentation of the hazard mitigation plan, which is also, I have to read the public notice. So I'm just going to read this public notice real quick before we allow anyone to start presenting. The town of Freetown has been working over the past year to develop the first hazard mitigation plan for the community. This plan is important because it helps the town plan and receive funding for projects that reduce the risk of injury or damaging to property from natural hazards, hazard events such as flooding, winter storms, and hurricanes. Public hearing to consider the above matter will be held on Thursday, August 8th, 2024 at 5 p.m. So here to present, we have Craig Pereira. So I'm going to hand it over to Mr. Pereira. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to share my screen and share the presentation. Can you all see that?
Yes.
Great. So thank you. As we just mentioned, the town's been working over the last year on the development of the first hazard mitigation plan for the town of Freetown. And we are at the end of our process. This is the second public workshop and our final presentation. After today, the public comment period will end on tomorrow, on Monday, I believe. We will send the plan to MEMA, Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency, for their review and approval. And then they will send it to FEMA for their review and approval. And again, so this is the first hazard mitigation plan for the town of Freetown. A hazard mitigation plan has a 5-year planning horizon. So once the plan is approved by FEMA and adopted by the town, the plan is then active for the next 5 years, which means that the town of Freetown will then be allowed to apply for any state and federal funding to implement mitigation actions that are included in the plan. So it's exciting to be at this point and to be presenting the first plan for the town. I don't know why it's not advancing. Okay. So we had a Freetown Local Hazard Mitigation Committee that has met over the last year or so. It's typically folks from municipal departments, the chairs, and then there's also myself and my colleague Kelly King, who also assisted with the plan development. So why hazard mitigation planning? The Disaster Mitigation Act of 2000 requires that all municipalities have an in-place approved multiple hazards mitigation plan in order to be eligible to apply for federal funding through disaster mitigation grants. They also identify or define hazard mitigation as the reduction or elimination of long-term risk to life, property, and the environment. And they also define natural hazards as any event or physical condition that has the potential to cause fatalities, injuries, property damage, infrastructure damage, agricultural loss, damage to the environment, interruption of business, and or other types of harm and or loss. So one of the pieces that we did take a look at was identifying a mission statement for the plan. So the Hazard Mitigation Committee developed this mission statement. The purpose of the Freetown Hazard Mitigation Plan is to preserve the quality of life, property values, natural, historic, and cultural resources by mitigating current and future natural hazards impacting the community, to reduce loss of life, losses of economic, natural, and historic resources, to foster a sustainable future for Freetown. We also identified the 5 goals below. These goals are intended to be overarching and broad brush. The details and the finer points really come in the mitigation action strategy, which I'll get to in a little bit. So the 5 goals include protecting the public's health, safety, and welfare, reducing property damages caused by natural hazard impacts, minimizing social distress and economic losses and business disruptions, mitigating existing and projected impacts of climate change towards a sustainable, resilient community, and providing an ongoing forum for the education and awareness of natural hazard mitigation issues, programs, policies, projects, and resources. So there are 4 steps to the hazard mitigation process. There's assessing risks, establishing goals, identifying projects and actions, and updating and maintaining the plan. So over the last year or so, we have a project webpage on the town's website that's been maintained. We keep all of our information there. We have information from previous presentations. We also have contact information in case anybody from the general public wants to reach out. And we also have our current draft plan posted there because we're in the midst of our public comment period. So the local hazard mitigation committee, we met 5 times. The first time was in May 2023. We met with just with Victoria at the time, just to kick the project off and identify some schedule limitations. But we had 4 regular meetings of the committee at specific milestones throughout the project. We had our public workshop number 1, which was back in November. And we had an online community survey that was open for just about 5 months with 39 responses in total. So the first piece is the hazard index, and this is these are all the different categories and hazards within those categories that we looked at. MEMA and FEMA require communities to assess or evaluate all of the hazards that the state hazard mitigation plan evaluates. And that state hazard mitigation plan for Massachusetts was updated in September of 2023. So because we had started prior to that, we sort of had to go back and revisit our approach to the hazard index. So you can see that there's specific categories: flood-related hazards, winter, wind, geologic, etc. And then within those different categories, there are specific hazards that we evaluated, or we call it a profile, where we look at the historic occurrences of those events. We look at any damages or damage assessments that were reported. And then the local hazard mitigation committee identifies the hazard index, which is the column to the final column to the right, by looking at the frequency, the location, and then severity. So this is what we came up with back in, I want to say, summer of last year. And we presented this at our first public workshop. This just gives us a snapshot of the community based on the different hazards that have been profiled over time. And every time the town updates their plan every 5 years, this hazard index has to be revisited and updated. So one of the next steps that we did was we performed an economic vulnerability analysis. So right now we are looking at the figure A1, the flood risks and repetitive loss areas. So essentially, part of the economic vulnerability analysis is to take the hazard scenarios and overlay them with the parcels data set, as well as with the critical facilities and vulnerable populations data set. So this is a GIS, or a Geographic Information Systems electronic mapping platform that we utilize to do this, and it's a series of overlay analyses. Coordination that Victoria conducted with the state floodplain coordinator included the National Flood Insurance Insured Properties Review. So currently there are 74 flood insurance policies within the town of Freetown with just over $19.2 million of coverage. There are also currently 2 repetitive loss properties, and those can be seen on the map. There's a red ellipse. And a repetitive loss property is a loss property that has suffered flood damage that has totaled over 50% of the total assessed value of that property. So the first hazard overlay was the FEMA flood hazard zones, where we looked at the 100-year and the 500-year flood zones. The 100-year is the light blue color on your map, and the 500-year is the orange brown color. The overlay analysis that we developed showed for the 100-year there are just over 1,000 parcels with assessed value of just over $690 million. The 500-year, there are 187 parcels impacted by the 500-year flood zone, with just over $81 million in potential impacts. The next vulnerability analysis that we did, or the hazard overlay, was the impacts of coastal flood hazards. So we utilize the Massachusetts Coast Flood Risk Model as our hazard scenario, which is the most recent and best available data set developed by the Woods Hole Group, I think almost 2 years ago now. And you can see that the majority of the impacts, which are very limited for Freetown, come in through the Taunton River. So it's the 1% annual exceedance chance for 2030, has 317 parcels impacted, just over $292 million. The 2050 scenario has 6 parcels that are impacted, just over $2 million. And the 2070 scenario has 18 parcels at just over $7 million. So these are just intended to show the potential impacts from these different scenarios in the projected future, so that the town can then, if, as a town is having planning meetings and making planning decisions about where they should put critical facilities or vulnerable populations or any new development, you'll be able to see where those projected impacts are located or projected to occur, and you can hopefully the town can avoid utilizing those specific areas. And then the final economic vulnerability analysis that we did for the hazard scenario was taking a look at the sea, lake, and overland surge from hurricanes or the slosh inundation areas. So again, you can see that it's mostly coming in through the Taunton River and impacting the community. The yellow color is the Category 1 hurricane. I'm sorry, I don't know why that advanced. The Category 2 is the light pink color. Category 3 hurricane is the orange, and Category 4 is the red. So we have just over 204 parcels, or $163 million for Category 1, 102 parcels impacted, just over $43 million for Category 2. Category 3 is 72 parcels, just over $111 million. And then Category 4, just 33 parcels, just over $14 million in potential impacts. Part of the vulnerability analysis is also to look at the social vulnerability impacts from these hazard scenarios. We took a look at the public infrastructure and emergency lifelines. Drinking water system, the town has a heavy reliance on individual wells. Transportation systems, there are various roadway segments that are intermittently impacted, not necessarily completely shut down, but impacted by the 3 different hazard scenarios that I just showed. There are some communication systems impacts. There's a cell tower in the 100-year flood zone. Town Hall is located in the 500-year flood zone. The Massachusetts Flood Risk Model for 2030. The sea, lake, and overland surge from hurricanes, Category 1. The fire station number 1 is also located in FEMA flood zones, as well as the flood risk model for 2030 and the sea, lake, and overland surge from hurricanes 1 and 2 zones. There are also multiple populations or facilities that are classified as vulnerable populations. So either schools or places of assembly where people congregate. There are various impacts as well, and those are all detailed in the draft plan. So the mitigation strategy, which is really the reason why we're here tonight, and really the bulk of the meat of the plan, we identified mitigation actions for consideration and inclusion from the local hazard mitigation committee meetings that we had, from the various plan studies and reports that the town has completed over time that we reviewed and evaluated and mentioned risks or natural hazard risks. We had that online survey, and then also just from Horsley Witten Group, the firm that I work for, based on our best practices working in other communities. The mitigation measures are organized into these 6 different categories: planning and prevention, property protection, natural resource protection, structural projects, emergency services, and public education and awareness. We put these into these 6 categories because it's our goal and our focus is to really make sure that the hazard mitigation plan is a living document and is user-friendly and does not sit on a shelf and just get dusty. So we try to make it as streamlined as possible so that when there is a funding opportunity available to the town, you can sort of navigate that plan fairly quickly to get to the information that you're looking for. FEMA also requires that we conduct a prioritization process, or the stapling method, which is essentially an abbreviated cost-benefit analysis looking at the 7 different areas here: social, technical, administrative, political, legal, economic, and environmental. So we had our final meeting with the local hazard mitigation committee. We took the score sheet and we had to evaluate the costs across all 7 categories and the benefits to come up with a total number. And that is similar to what the town would go through once the plan is approved and in place and adopted. And should there be a funding mechanism available and the town would submit an application for funding, the town would have to go and complete a full-blown cost-benefit analysis. So it's a very time-consuming task. The process that we use for the HMP, which is the requirement, is a much more simplified process. FEMA also requires that we identify timeframes for the mitigation actions. So we have short, medium, and long term. Again, recognizing that a hazard mitigation plan has a 5-year planning horizon. So, long term would be 18 months to 5 years. That doesn't mean that we're not factoring in mitigation actions that are longer range than that. It's just we have to assign a time frame. We also have to assign a cost range to that. So some of these action items fall under just someone's municipal role in the community. It could be cost ranges from minimal to moderate to 25,000 or more. And then this is the 2024 mitigation strategy, and you'll see that the topic area is listed up above in the all capital letters. We have the action items numbered, and then in the red font, I typically show where the actual mitigation action comes from. I think it's helpful for folks who are reviewing the plan to know exactly where these actions stem from. So action 1 comes from the regional projects addendum to the Lakeville Rochester Freetown MVP plan, which was done in 2019. The MVP plan is the Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Program, which is offered through the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs. The town completed the planning grant process. And then since then, the town completed this regional update as well. It was a regional update. So the action itself is to promote awareness of vector-borne diseases, tick and mosquito-related, as well as tree-related pests and diseases through enhanced education and additional resources. And I just want to step back for 1 minute also. So anything that is relative to an MVP plan, whether it's the original MVP planning grant or this regional addendum or update to the MVP plans, there are this represents 2 different funding mechanisms now. There's the MVP action grant mechanism through the state of Massachusetts. And now that we're carrying this over into the hazard mitigation plan, there's HMP funding as well. So it's a benefit to the community to carry all of these over into this plan so that the town now has the flexibility of either seeking funding through the Commonwealth or funding through the federal government. I do want to note that MVP funding is much more flexible and forgiving than a federal grant application would be. But nonetheless, the funding is there, and if you can find the capacity to put together a quality application. I highly recommend going through MVP first and then going through HMP after that through the federal government. I also do recommend that once this plan is approved by FEMA and adopted locally by the town and in compliance for the next 5 years, any other plan that the town works on over the next 5 years should incorporate these mitigation actions as well. The more that the town can show in your application that these mitigation actions have been vetted across multiple demographics and multiple platforms, the stronger your argument is and the more teeth your application has in being selected for implementation and funding. So that being said, action 2 comes from our 2024 hazard mitigation plan development and the risk assessment. So ensure that critical facilities are adequately protected against multiple hazards. There's that cell tower, and then the town hall and the fire station within the FEMA flood zones and several of the slosh zones as well. Action 3 also comes from this process. Ensure that vulnerable populations are adequately protected against multiple hazards. So there are various churches and other community facilities where folks congregate that are also located within the FEMA flood zones, the MCFRM for 2030, and then the slosh zones as well. The next category is public education and awareness. So action 4 comes from the APC or Assawamsett Ponds Complex and the Nemasket Watershed Management and Climate Action Plan, as well as the 2024 HMP Risk Assessment Review. So this is to coordinate protection efforts to reduce flood risks to people, property of the APC with regional planning partners, Lakeville, Freetown, Middleborough, New Bedford, Taunton, local stakeholder groups, and state agencies across shared objectives and actions to address ongoing challenges and increase long-term climate resilience, including creating a volunteer buyout program and/or prepare to participate in potential state-run programs to acquire properties for flood storage, restrict development encroachment into the floodplain by requiring a special permit review in the flood overlay district, identify and prioritize areas where nature-based stormwater management may have the greatest impact on mitigating stormwater and flooding, restore natural wetland habitat and functions so that these lands can act like a sponge to hold and slowly infiltrate and filter water. Under natural resource protection, action 5 also comes from the APC Watershed Management and Climate Action Plan. Coordinate protection efforts to safeguard public drinking water supplies of the APC with regional planning partners across shared objectives to address ongoing challenges and increase long-term climate resilience. Utilize a multi-platform approach to notify the public of restricted water use periods and conservation measures, including webpage, social media, and roadway signage boards. Also, regularly evaluate and update drought protocols and backup supply plans. There are various groundwater resources identified to be impacted by the 100-year flood zone, as well as the flood risk model and slosh zones. Action number 6 also comes from the APC Watershed Management Climate Action Plan. Again, coordinate protection efforts to preserve wildlife and habitat of the APC with regional planning partners across shared objectives and actions to address ongoing challenges and increase long-term climate resilience. So adopt and/or update forestry management plans that improve forest health and resilience to climate change. Action number 7 comes from the Freetown MVP Summary of Findings. So flooding resilience and septic system management for Long Pond and APC stewardship. Review existing management plan for APC and conduct a study of flooding impacts on water quality while conducting engagement with neighboring towns and exploring grant and loan funding for septic system maintenance. Action number 8 comes from the 2024 Local Hazard Mitigation Committee, or R process. Complete repairs and improvements at the town's salt barn to minimize runoff and salt intrusion into adjacent private drinking water wells. Specific actions include repaving the yard to control and restrict runoff on site and install drainage to control and restrict runoff on site. Moving on to the structural projects, action number 9 also comes from our process and the risk assessment here to develop an implementation strategy to address property and streets subject to flooding associated with the Sonnet River. So determine what mitigation activities, whether it's maintenance, monitoring, structural replacement, or pavement management, can alleviate the problem or create a benefit to the community. So essentially addressing roads that are part of the town's evacuation route first, then main thoroughfares for evacuation purposes for the following roadways. The causeway leading to Sonnet Bay shores. Yep. I thought someone had a question. Beach Bluff Road leading to Hemlock Point, Dr. Briley Road, Fallbrook at Chase Road Flume, and the culvert on Fallbrook at Chipaway Road. I do want to mention that FEMA funding does not qualify for maintenance. That falls on the individual community. It also does not apply to pavement management, which is also considered an ongoing maintenance issue, but it does qualify under structural replacement. So that's why we're including this here. Moving on to emergency services, action 10 also comes from your Freetown MVP summary of findings from 2019. Just improving emergency communication practices, developing materials and presentations appropriate for a range of demographics. Action 11 comes from that regional projects addendum to the MVP plan. Develop greater regional capacity or facilities to serve the area during or post climate disruption related events, including facility improvements, backup communication and communication capabilities, adequate transportation services for vulnerable populations, and then capacity to shelter pets and livestock. Action number 12 comes from the 2024 Local Hazard Mitigation Committee, working with MEMA Regional Director to reestablish Freetown's Local Emergency Planning Committee. Action 13 also comes from this process from 2024 to work with the town of Berkeley to better understand recruiting and retainment strategies and developing a citizens emergency response team. So a CERT team is just comprised of local volunteers that there's actually free training that the town can apply for to get folks who are volunteering for the CERT team. And they just provide additional assistance during local emergencies to typically police and fire personnel. Under planning and prevention category now, action 14, Freetown comes from the Freetown MVP summary of findings from 2019. The Council on Aging Infrastructure and Senior Mixed-Use Housing Development Improvements. So review the existing management plan for the APC and conduct a study of flooding. Consider building improvements such as developing a larger COA facility, adding showers, and improving electrical infrastructure. Also ensuring that 55 plus or age-restricted housing is prioritized in zoning regulations addressing resilience issues. Action number 15 comes from this 2024 process and the risk assessment. I do want to preface this by saying that with the update of the statewide hazard mitigation plan in September of 2023 and the changes to federal regulations and guidance, there are new funding opportunities for high and significant hazard dams within the community. And with that new regulation and that new guidance, it requires that the towns all conduct a robust review of the dams that are in town. So there's quite a number of action items that are suggested towards improvements to some of the dams, phase 1 inspection reports, as well as to the emergency action plans. And the whole point behind that is because there's this new funding mechanism specifically targeted towards high and significant hazard dams. So action 15, coordinate with private dam owners to ensure the completion of recommended improvements identified in the most recent phase 1 inspection report for the following dams: Brown Pond Dam, Monument Pond Dam, Stillwater Pond Dam, and Tisdale Pond Dam. So a phase 1 inspection and evaluation report for significant hazard dams needs to happen every 2 years to be in compliance. For a high hazard dam every 5 years, and a low hazard dam every 10 years. That phase 1 inspection and evaluation report is conducted by a licensed professional engineer who identifies and evaluates all the different improvements that have to happen to that dam to maintain that dam in good operational order. Action 16, coordinate with the city of Fall River to ensure the completion of recommended improvements identified in the most recent Phase 1 inspection report for the Terry Brook Reservoir Dam. Action number 17 comes from that regional projects addendum or update for the MVP plan, assessing the integrity of roadway infrastructure and the green infrastructure surrounding it. Action 18 comes from this 2024 process to coordinate with private dam owners to develop and or update where noted the emergency action plans for the following dams for Brown Pond, Monument Pond, and Tisdale Pond Dam. So any dam that is classified by the Office of Dam Safety in Massachusetts through the DCR requires that any higher significant hazard dams have an emergency action plan developed for that structure. Those emergency action plans are required to be updated on an annual basis, which is actually a fairly quick and simple process. It's a checklist. So again, it's really just essentially just updating residents and property owners who fall within the wet weather and the dry weather failure inundation zones, so that when they do have that call down tree, should there be a breach at the dam, the town has all of the specific residents at risk who can be contacted for that. Action number 19 also comes from the 2024 process to coordinate with the city of Fall River to update that emergency action plan for the Terry Brook Reservoir Dam as well. The one caveat statement that applies to private dams or dams that are owned by other municipalities, the town of Freetown doesn't really have any enforcement capacity with that. It really comes down to just coordinating with the private dam owners or coordinating with the other municipal owners of these structures, reminding these folks what they're required to do as far as the Phase 1 inspection reports or the emergency action plans as well. Some communities that have the capacity to do this would typically either do the Phase 1 inspection report themselves and then seek reimbursement from the private property owner or from the municipality, while others just, again, try to coordinate on an annual basis where folks are falling outside of compliance. Action 20 also comes from the 2024 process to coordinate with private dam owners to complete a current Phase 1 inspection report, then ensure completion of recommended improvements identified on the updated Phase 1 inspection report for Monument Pond Dam. And then finally, Action 21 also comes from this 2024 process to identify alternative storage location and or a strategy for critical town records, documents, and operating equipment. So that is the 2024 mitigation strategy. We have our draft update, which is available for public comment right now until Monday, August 12th. The plan is available on the project webpage hosted on the town's website. Once we do get comments back and we have the end of the comment period, I will present everything that came in from either the town or from residents and property owners to the local hazard mitigation committee, and we will evaluate which ones are going to be addressed and which ones we can not consider. Sometimes we get comments from residents who don't fully understand the hazard mitigation purpose and process. So sometimes there are comments that are not necessarily applicable. And then once we do address those comments and update the plan, we will send the draft plan to MEMA by August 30th for their review and consideration. Typically, MEMA has a 45 to 60-day queue for that review period. So we could potentially be looking at 2 months before we get MEMA's approval. They have not been taking that long. They have been expediting reviews very quickly. Once the plan is approved by MEMA, they will forward the plan to FEMA. FEMA also has a 45 to 60-day queue to review and evaluate that plan for completeness. Once FEMA reviews that and deems it approved pending adoption, they will send a letter to the town letting them know that the plan has been approved pending adoption. And from that date forward, the town of Freetown will have 1 year, 1 calendar year, to officially adopt the plan through resolution. And then as soon as that plan is adopted through resolution, the letter will go to MEMA, who will forward a copy of the letter to FEMA. And then the town of Freetown has 5 years moving forward where the plan is in compliance and is eligible to apply for FEMA funding. If there are any questions or comments after the fact, here is the town administrator's contact information as well as my own. I'm going to stop sharing now and see if there are any questions that folks might have.
Craig, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, go ahead, Jerry.
Carlos, please go first. Talk.
Craig, great presentation. Thank you. That's a lot of information. My concern, looking at it from the town perspective, is your take on, well, the committee's take on private dams, phase one, action there too. Right. So these private dams, what are we talking? How many of these private dams do we have in the Freetown area, or those that are impact Freetown on the phase one? I'm looking more of a liability in case something goes wrong. You know, a tree falls into the dam, destroys the dam. Now there's more water coming into our town. What's the liability on the property owners on the private dams?
So they would be fully liable. I did have a conversation with the local hazard mitigation committee at I think it was the third meeting that we had. It could have been the fourth meeting. I can't recall, but I was working in another community where there was a dam failure. And the town actually had just recently purchased the structure, not doing their due diligence and not realizing that there had not been a recent phase one inspection report, that there was not an emergency action plan for the structure, and was sort of backpedaling and trying to figure out what they should do moving forward. At the Freetown Local Hazard Mitigation Committee meeting, I'm fairly certain that I followed up with Victoria some language that you could put into a letter to these private dam owners, reminding them of what their requirements or the required compliance is, being the owner of that dam, and what that really means. I can certainly forward that information on to Deb again, but I would certainly advise you to get those letters out to those private dam owners, and so that you have a record, making sure that you're notifying them that they have a responsibility as a dam owner and what those impacts could be to the community of Freetown. So that would be my recommendation moving forward, is to definitely, whether it's a phase one inspection report or an emergency action plan update, to make sure that those get done, that those letters get sent out, and that you maintain copies on file at the town. You know, just because a phase one inspection report is current and in compliance, you know, whether it's a 2-year period, a 5-year period, or a 10-year period, the problem really lies in accountability. So once that phase one gets developed, the property owner is responsible for making those improvements, and that's where things sort of fall short. It's not a matter of updating the phase one inspection report. It's a matter of actually conducting the work or the improvements to make sure that that dam is maintained in good operating order and safe operating order.
Now, have you ever come into a situation that this mitigation plan that we're creating or have created, property owners can't sustain or refuse to comply? What's our course of action from that point?
I don't know
Hypothetically,
that
of
you
course.
have any teeth with that. I think,
Okay.
like I said, I would certainly put a letter on file to the property owner, reminding them of what their requirements are as the owner. I would also copy the Office of Dam Safety on that. There's a couple of folks. I think Emily Caruso is one of the contacts at the Office of Dam Safety under DCR. I would certainly copy them as well. You're going to find, if you dig deep enough, that there are actually structures that are owned by the state that are out of compliance with phase one inspection reports and EAPs as well.
I'm shocked.
So, I would just say to cover all your bases, I would do the letter to the private owner and copy the letter to the Office of Dam Safety. And I think that way liability falls off the shoulders of the town.
Thank you, Craig. You've answered my question. Appreciate it.
Sure.
All right, Craig, so first of all, great job presenting that. That's a lot of information.
Yes.
That can affect a lot of people. So, a bunch of us that, Debbie, as well as myself, live in an area that was dealt with a flood, about 15 years ago now, and was inaccessible, except for by special vehicles. So we get it, and it's a real concern. Is it by us putting things into perspective and saying, okay, we're gonna do, I don't know, the fire station, and then we have that in there as over $25,000, but in a major project. Are we saying that what's the liability? Is there any liability to us moving it or doing something to help mitigate that problem within the 5-year period?
So a hazard mitigation plan, I should have said this up front. A hazard mitigation plan is not going to accomplish anything specifically. The only thing that it does accomplish is establish a roadmap for future efforts. So anything that's included in the hazard mitigation plan does not hold the town liable or responsible for accomplishing any of it. You should be looking at it as a giant wish list.
Yes.
Should there be funding available? And again, that situation that I mentioned where with the MVP program versus the HMP program, having multiple funding mechanisms offers a little bit of flexibility to the community, how you want to apply and where you want to apply. But it does not hold the town liable to do or complete any of the actions at all. If there are other actions that come into play after this plan is approved and adopted by the community and already in place, the town can update this plan by simply updating the plan. If you're changing an action item and just revising language, if you're adding mitigation actions, the only thing that the town would have to do is just update the plan to include that information or include the revised information, send a copy of that to the state, to MEMA, and you'll get a letter from MEMA and FEMA saying that based on your suggested or your proposed revisions, your plan is now compliant as well. So there's flexibility in that. You don't have to go through the whole update process when you do revise your plan during the 5-year compliance period. And
Who
there's
makes
no
that
liability.
Oh, sorry. So who makes that decision? How is it voted on? Who has the right to make that change to say that we want to add A, B, and C and remove D from it?
So it would most likely be, well, now that Victoria's moved on, it would probably be Deb. And the whole point of section 5 is like plan implementation and maintenance. And that's where we specify in the plan that the town and this local hazard mitigation committee that I've been working with for over the last year will meet on an annual basis to review the plan or more frequently if needed. So, and then also if there is a significant event and there's a disaster declared, either within the state or the county or the community, the town should really consider revising the plan and updating the plan after a significant event like that as well. So it would be whoever is in charge at the time and then working with the local hazard mitigation committee to make those changes.
I like the idea of it going through Deb or the committee. That's a perfect answer to me because, they're the ones who are living this stuff, right? They're the ones who've been involved since the beginning.
Right.
It's really the people who are in the know in the town. So I think that's a perfect answer. but I just didn't know who and what and how many people and, you know, cause you said, okay, well, you can just, after this initial plan's adopted, you know, you can make changes and send it off and then, okay, it gets adopted and then no one really knows about it and
Yep.
shame on us. We had, you know, we had someone do it and then no one else knew about it. So that was my concern. So
Yep.
thank you for clarification on that.
Sure.
I have one question. Can you hear me, Craig?
Yes.
I wanted to know, we talked about funding, MVP funding and HMP, funding. Do you know if you can piggyback them?
I don't know for certain. I don't believe you can. And the MV, there's all with the HMP funding, there's typically a match. There's usually a 25% match, a financial match. So I know that a lot of communities try to piggyback on both and use one for that financial, that 25%. And I'm fairly certain that the Commonwealth and the federal government's kind of caught on to that. So I don't believe that you can piggyback. I do know that if you were to have a mitigation act, there's several mitigation actions in the plan that reference a regional approach. That
Right.
is one way to identify some cost efficiencies, and then as well as the 25% match burden share, cost share as well. And I do know that the MVP program through the Commonwealth, but also the HMGP, they look at regional partnerships favorably, and they look at it as more of economies of scale. And so I would certainly consider that. I do want to state that if you have specific actions that rise to the top that are really important and really critical to get done, start working on those now. Start developing your paper trail of damage assessments, of impacts in the community, critical infrastructure downtime, things like this. Start building your case now, because what happens is that should there be a disaster declared and there's funding available, you'll get notice that there's funding available, but there's typically a quick turnaround time. And when you have limited capacity and manpower in town to actually turn that application around, especially knowing that you have to do a full-blown cost benefit analysis, a lot of communities end up moving away from that because they just don't have the internal capacity to pull it together. So I would certainly start working on your high priority actions now. Start to develop that background information. If there's damages, there's damage assessments, photographs. There's so many different ways that you can put yourself in a position so that when there is a funding opportunity that comes about, you're ready to submit that application, or that you have a good start to it. And a lot of times when there's money left on the table after that funding round, MEMA will come back around for a second ask. There's a little bit more flexibility at that point when there is a second ask. But again, there is money left on the table, and the primary issue with a funding application for FEMA is that based on that cost benefit analysis, the full-blown cost benefit analysis that you have to do, you have to achieve a cost benefit ratio of 1.0 or greater in order for it to be considered a competitive application. So what typically happens is it's an actual computer software that you can utilize to do that cost benefit analysis. If you don't get to that 1.0, you can still submit your application just in case there might have been like light traffic at that point in time. But you're going to want to go back and revisit that and utilize the services of MEMA and the planners at MEMA to help you expand. So you might want to expand your reach. So if it's a flood study, or you had mentioned, Selectman Zager mentioned, flooding in a specific area in town, you might want to add one or two neighborhoods onto that so that your reach is larger, your impacts are greater, and that drives your cost benefit analysis ratio up further.
I'm not sure you can give me the information, but in the beginning, you talked about, properties that had multiple losses, and I think there was.
Severe repetitive flood loss properties.
I can't see the map very well, so I didn't know what those were because I wasn't aware of that.
So that is information that is considered sensitive information. So
Okay.
so I'm not allowed to actually get that information. Victoria was the one that had to request that information as a municipal employee.
Okay.
And we show that information on the map as like a very loose, nebulous kind of blurb, because it's against the law to show and state the actual physical address because it diminishes the property value for those two homeowners.
I just know that there's grant funding. There's grant funding available. I've seen grant funding that can mitigate, right, these repetitive loss properties. Whatever that looks like, whether it's the town buying the property and removing the property, or whether it's the town funding to raise the property, bringing it up into a, so that's why I was asking, because I have seen those grant opportunities.
Yeah, and there's actually one of the federal programs is open space acquisition of those flood prone properties. The only thing is that if you apply for and receive federal funding for property acquisition of a repetitive flood loss property, that what happens is that that structure would be demolished and the property would have to remain in open space in perpetuity. So it comes off the tax roll, but it can flood and it can be okay to flood because there's nothing there.
Right, yeah, so that, okay, thank you.
Yep.
Yeah,
That's all.
everything, yeah. All right, so, Luann, do we have anyone waiting to ask questions so you can see?
Nope.
No, okay. I guess, I really want to thank you, Craig, for your time. And, I think this is a good step in the right direction. So I really do appreciate your time. Unless anyone has any further questions, I'll let Craig go.
No questions here.
All right, perfect.
Great.
All right.
All right. Thank
so
you.
much for your time, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you
Fred.
for the opportunity. And Deb, I will be in touch with you on next steps. Yeah, and that's it. Thanks for your time, everybody. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I
Thanks,
appreciate
Craig. Great job.
your
All
work.
right. Take care.
Since to get the packet, 'cause I don't have.
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm just gonna ask that we go into a 5-minute recess. And then call back. So, I'm gonna entertain a motion that we go into recess.
I motion made.
I will second it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So I just-
Luann, you want to do roll call? You're muted.
Selectman Lopes,
Yes.
Selectman Zager.
Yes. Thank you. See everyone in 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
I should be able to call it.
We're recording.
All right, thank you.
Mhm.
So, thank you everyone for that brief pause. The meeting going again. So we're gonna move on to agenda item number 2. Agenda item number 2 is discussion and vote on whether to approve the open session minutes from 7/29/2024. With that, I entertain a motion to approve the open session minutes from 7/29/2024.
Motion made.
I will second it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. You're on mute, Gwen. Sorry.
Sorry, Selectman Lopes,
Yes.
Selectman Zager.
Yes. We're a little bit rusty at this apparently, which
I
is
know,
actually
I
good.
thought I hit the button, but I guess not.
So agenda item number 3, discussion and vote on whether to approve the sales order and sales agreement from National Van Builders, Inc. for the new paratransit van for the Council on Aging. So there was an updated, just getting to it. I know saw that Rebecca's on here, but there was, the sales order for the dollar amount, I believe, was what it changed. So
78,354.
yes, yep. So I mean, it is what it is. That unfortunately, whatever, the things change. But the good news is we're moving in the right direction, and we did get some money.
Yes, so there's two grants, there was an earmark last year that we got for, I think from Senator Rogers for 25,000. And then, Rebecca filed for a grant application and got another $25,000.
Mhm.
So 50,000 of this was funded by grant or other funds. So the reality is town is getting a brand new van for 28,000 and change, so.
Absolutely. I mean, you can't get better than that, right?
No.
$28,000. So thank you, Rebecca. Appreciate everyone's hard work because it's a lot of money saved. So and I know the seniors will appreciate it. So, Carlos, you have any questions or concerns?
Welcome.
Well, my first question was going to be, what's the amount? Because in my agenda packet, I don't have a total figure. So saving $50,000, I'm all for it.
Yeah, the total amount, sorry to cut you off, $78,354. So you're looking at a cost to the community, to the town, $28,354.
I'll take the $50,000 savings. So it looks like, looking at the schematics, you have a 3 ADA passenger vehicle when the seats are up, and it looks like 6 to 8 or 6 to 9 when they're down.
Yeah,
Am
I
I
think
correct?
9.
Perfect.
I think you can have, some seats are up, some seats are down. It's a combination. It's a brand new vehicle, so there's a lot going on.
Now, I know the concern prior to this was to make sure we have a lot of residents that go to like places like New Bedford, right? The city of New Bedford that have low hanging parking garages. Will this
Yes.
van accommodate the low ceiling, low requirement as we discussed in previous meetings?
Yes, so it's actually going to be a medium height roof, which is great. We're not going for the high roof, and also this van is going to be able to fit in parking spaces, which has been huge. Our drivers have had a lot of challenges not being able to park safely in parking spaces. So this van can also just actually stay in a parking space.
That is a plus.
Yes.
I see there's like a ramp that comes out. I'm assuming that's for the wheelchairs to get it in and out through the front.
Correct. Yes, on the side.
Excellent. All right.
Thanks, stuff. Rebecca,
Fantastic.
any questions or comments from you in regards to this? Sorry to put you on the spot, but just want to make sure that you're okay with it, and if you have any input on it.
Me? I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Yeah, no, I'm
Cat
sorry.
hat in the
Sometimes
background.
I can tend to mumble too. So
No, that's okay.
so I just wanted to make sure if you had any questions or comments or anything in regards to
No,
it.
I don't think so. We're pretty excited that we were able to get the additional 25,000 through MCOA. So that was something we had gone out for a few months ago. And we're very happy that we were able to get that from MCOA. So
And thank
no,
you.
I'm excited about it.
Debbie.
My only question was, Rebecca, do you know when you might expect the van?
I don't. Nope. That is something I can follow up with him about. The guy that the sales rep that I had been dealing with was on vacation. So I can follow up with him, Andrew, and find out if he has some more updated information for me.
Perfect. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you so much again.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Appreciate it. So with that, I am going to entertain a motion to approve the sales order and sales agreement from National Van Builders, Inc. for the new paratransit van for the Council on Aging.
Motion's made.
I will second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Selectman Lopes,
Yes.
Selectman Zager.
Yes. Agenda item number 4, discussion and vote whether to also authorize the town administrator to sign the sales order and sales agreement with National Van Builders. So something Debbie's gotten pretty good at these days is signing for us that we approve. So So this one kind of can't be any more straightforward. So with that, I will entertain a motion to approve, to authorize the town administrator to sign the sales order and sales agreement with National Van Builders.
Motion's made.
I will second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Selectman Lopes,
Yes.
Selectman Zager,
Yes. No, number 5, discussion and vote on adding cameras to the transfer station. So, you know, we have a couple of different schematics that I can't really go through what it is, but, you know, for safety concerns, obviously, and security, but, you know, we've got a lot of talk about adding some cameras for safety reasons and stuff down at the transfer station. So, you know, we have some different things, but, you know, some of it I don't think at this point really makes sense, based on work that will need to be done, for as far as electrical. So, Carlos, do you have any comments or concerns with this?
Piggyback off what you said, Jared, you're correct. The cameras we have there now, they're just outdated. It doesn't cover all the angles. We have a lot of missing areas. You know, it's a lot of stuff coming in, going throughout this transfer station, from hazard mitigation to sales here and there. We still make sure we're covering everything, so we know what's going on at the transfer station. This is just upkeep in a sense. Like I said, the cameras that are there now, they're based on an old infrastructure system that we have in place, and it buffers out. We're just not getting the coverage we need. We all went out there, took a look. We brought the expert with us and kind of try to get all the blind spots that we had in place. And this is just to make sure that one, our employees are safe, the public is safe, and two, we're following all federal and state mandates required for a transfer station. That's as simple as that. There's no secret sauce in this one. This is just unfortunately the cost of doing business with the transfer station.
So right now, I mean, I guess to keep it simple, do we want to try and approve for all 3? But I really don't think so. I think that we only go after the ones that really make sense, which at this point is just item number 1 on the list. And do you have any issues with that? Just because, well, how I started this with is I don't want to say, okay, we're going to put cameras somewhere where there's no electricity. You know, so what's the point? You know, we can come back to it as we get electricity to some of these areas or whatever, or other issues. It's not just electricity, there's other issues, right? So, are you in agreement with that?
No, your logic is correct. For now, we don't have electricity in place, and the main camera that we would need for the vehicles coming and going into the transfer station towards the main site as you pass the main driveway in a sense, right? So fixing the ones we have there now, absolutely. And then once we get electricity, swing back to this and add that camera after the fact. So I'm in agreement with you. Let's fix what's there now. Let's get the electrical where we need it. It's there now. We just got to make some adjustments so that we can get a weatherproof boxing and casing. Make sure that all the equipment is protected. Then once that happens, then yes, we can swing back and then reconvene with this vote again.
Yeah, and I guess I don't want to drag this on all night, but I do want to, reiterate what you had just said, is that, the equipment needs to be updated. That's what this is all about. And, I don't want people to think, we're negative. This is, helping out our residents and the employees and safety for everyone. So that's really it with this. So,
Yeah, I agree with you, Jared. This is no nefarious reasons. There's nothing going on. This is just, hey, we're using 1995 cameras in 2024. It's a simple way of looking at it.
yeah. So, with that, I'm going to entertain a motion that we approve adding list number 1 of cameras to the transfer station.
Motion made.
I will second it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Selectman Lopes,
Yes.
Selectman Zager,
Yes. All right, moving on to agenda item number 6, discussion and vote on whether to approve the road opening permit for 182 Brayley Road to run water to a main house per septic system plan. So this is something that, you know, contractor had come to us with during the end of the last meeting, and we had, you know, talked about it with them. They had approval, but, you know, they were up against some tight timeframes, so we had approved it, and now we're putting it into, you know, the regular meeting. You know, I think as long as they had, you know, they had the sign offs from everyone, this was an approved plan. You know, I think this is pretty straightforward, and, you know, is there any issues from you? Carlos, any?
No, after reviewing the plan and listening to Mr. Petty at the last open public session, pretty straightforward. I'm glad this is back on our agenda, kind of following up. So this is a day-to-day business.
Okay, very good, thank you. So with that, I entertain a motion to approve the road opening permit for 182 Brayley Road to run water to the main house per the septic system plan.
Motion made.
I will second it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Selectman Lopes,
Yes.
Selectman Zager,
Yes. And item number 7, discussion and vote whether to allow exclusive use of the bandstand to the town library children's musical program on 8/22/24 from 1 to 3 p.m. I think this is a great idea, and you know, we talk about it all the time, and I love all the community involvement we've had over the past couple of years, and this is just another little step of what I'm talking about. We're all talking about, right, as a group and as a community. So you know, I'm nothing but excited for this. I think it's pretty straightforward. So anything, Carlos, before?
This is one of the simplest things we do throughout the year.
Yeah.
Approving 2 great uses, right? 1, public land, and 2, for the town library. And now it's for children and music. Win, win, win. So
Yeah.
yes, yes, and yes.
All right. So with that, I will entertain a motion to allow exclusive use to the bandstand at the town library children's music program on 8/22/2024. From 1
Motion
to,
made.
all right,
Sorry.
I will second it.
Motion made.
I will second it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Selectman Lopes,
Yes.
Selectman Zager,
Yes. Agenda item number 8, discussion and vote on and awarding the paving and milling project for Howland Road and Assonet Bay Shores. So we've got the quotes in. Bear with me 1 second. And we only obviously, you know, so the lowest bidder came in at PJ Keaton Company for just about $547,995. So, you know, reputable company, they have everything in order, right? We don't, there's nothing standing left that we need from them. So, you know, this is all approved and ready to go. So I think, you know, as long as we have everything, and it's really a no-brainer to just move on with the lowest company. So.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. This is little over 3 miles worth of road from what I see, and at the lowest bidder. So let's again, we do this every year. This is a cost of doing business as a town. Make sure our roads and walkways are up to date, and this is part of it.
All right, so with that, I entertain a motion to award the paving and milling project for Harlan Road and Assonet Bay Shores to PJ Keaton Company.
Motion made.
I will second it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Selectman Lopes,
Yes.
Selectman Zager,
Yes. Agenda item number 9, discussion and vote whether to approve the contract between the town of Freetown and PJ Keaton for the paving and milling project for Howland Road and Assonet Bay Shores. So this is literally, you know, the contract that we have with them. So it's just a, you know, follow up that we're approving to sign it. I didn't see anything wrong with it. You know, pretty straightforward. So with that, I will entertain a motion to approve the contract between the town of Freetown and PJ Keaton for the paving and milling projects for Howland Road and Sonnet Bay Shores.
Motion made.
I will second it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Selectman Lopes,
Yes.
Selectman Zager,
Yes. Agenda item number 10, discussion and vote whether to authorize the town administrator to sign the contract between PJ Keaton for the with PJ Keaton Company for a paving and milling project for Howland Road and Sonnet Bay Shores. So it's kind of our general theme always is having Debbie sign everything for us. So, you know, another straightforward thing. So with that, I entertain a motion to approve. I entertain a motion to authorize the town administrator to sign the contract between PJ Keaton Company for paving and milling project for Howland Road and Sonnet Bay Shores.
Motion made.
I will second it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Selectman Lopes,
Yes.
Selectman Zager,
Yes. Agenda item number 11, discussion and vote on declaring the following items as surplus and disposing of them. A stand-up desk from the town administrator's office, which is broken, and we'll send off to the transfer station. And B, radar trailer is surplus, outdated, no value, and donated to the town of Berkeley. You know, two straightforward things, and the town of Berkeley has said that they have a need for it. So rather than throw it in the trash, we, you know, can do something good with it and, you know, donate it over to the town next door. So it's been a great partner with us. So I think it's pretty straightforward.
I just got a question on this. So I understand the broken desk from Luann. I'm glad no one got hurt. All right. But B, the radar trailer, looking at the notes, it says that they have the finances to fix the trailer or update the trailer for their own use. Is that something that we can do? I know these trailers cost, you know, thousands of dollars. If they're gonna update it at the town of Berkeley, is that something we can do as well? I'm more of a question than anything else. Is it not worth our time? Is it cheaper than buying a new one? Those are the questions that I have on that one. Right, we already have them, but we always could use more as well, right? So in 2, 3 years, 5 years from now, when the chief comes back to us, say, "Hey, I need a radar trailer," is this going to come back to say, "Hey, we should have kept that one and just fixed it"?
It's a 1999 radar trailer. It's 25 years old. They use software in them to do work, and this one isn't compatible. I got a grant. I don't know if it was last year or the year before to get a new one, and so they don't need this one, and it doesn't always work. They have trouble. It's large, and that's what the chief was requesting. I don't know if Berkeley's going to use it for parts, or they're going to update it, or they don't have one, and this is, you know, a step in the right direction since they're a mutual aid town with us. You know, they help us and we help them. So to answer your question, I mean, the chief came in and said they don't use it. It's really not working for them. The software is a big piece of it because it's not compatible at this point with the software that reads the speeds and whatnot that they use with the new speed trailer. We got more than just the speed trailer with the grant. We got two of the speed signs that go, like, you can just attach to a tree or a pole. So we have 3 now and they all have data that you can collect from them. So I think that we just have more updated equipment at this point, that this one won't be used because of sort of a dinosaur at this point.
And I think, you know, and Debbie said exactly what I was going to say about, you know, a lot of this stuff, and it's not just a Freetown thing, it's everywhere, right? You drive and they have the speed limit signs, they're attached to poles. That's really where that's going. And right now, if you're driving past, as of like 2 days ago, I was driving by the forest, and the sign was out there, right? Their radar trailer was out there, but it was conveying a message about being hands-free while driving. So I don't think they're using that as much for that, as more as they're using it for messaging and stuff. So I don't know that they're, you know, if they're saying, if the chief is saying, hey, we don't need it, and someone else wants it, I really think it's a no-brainer to put it into that direction. You know, something that's 25 years old. so it's, you know how it is, technology and how long it lasts, so.
I do, and my question was more directed towards the aficionados and the online hawks. They're gonna be asking that question down the road, and we might as well get that question out of the way now. And because and I'm in agreement. It's just because it's 25 years old, I wouldn't call it a dinosaur. But in the age of technology, I agree. It's a little outdated. And we've upgraded our systems quite a bit. That you're right. This does not fit our needs any longer. So I agree.
All right, so I think we're both in agreement now, so, well, have been, with that, I will entertain a motion, to declare the following items as surplus and dispose of them, the stand-up desk from the town administrator's office and the radar trailer, from, the police station.
Motion made.
I will second it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Selectman Lopes,
Yes.
Selectman Zager,
Yes. Agenda item number 12, discussion and vote on whether the community program director can sell the town cookbook and funds go into the revolving funds. So we have Kylie on, but obviously this is hi Kylie, how you doing? And
I'm good. How are you?
good, thank you. So this is another step in the process of things you're doing to help with involvement, and and you're generating money at this point, right, through this. So I'm not sure if there's anything you want to talk about with it in regards to it, and what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, Nicole and I haven't even decided if we want it to be put to sale. I just want to have that option just in case it becomes popular.
Mhm.
I also just want some type of revenue to help keep programs free for the future.
Mhm.
I really enjoy having all these free programs, especially in this day and age. It's important that families are able to go out and have a good time without having to worry about costs. So something as simple as $5 can go a long way towards helping future programs. So I thought this could be one way of achieving that.
I appreciate that, right? Because to your point, this was something that was funded at first, and then we could pull from it, but we eventually have to, we have to get the funding from somewhere. Nothing, unfortunately, is free. So if we have something that the public wants and we can give to them at a fair price, and you can get a little bit of money back, that can help generate things so that you can continue on with concerts and different things in town that you've been working diligently on. I'm all about it.
Thank
And
you.
as someone who can't cook that well and can be very limited, I'll take any cookbook I can get. So I appreciate it.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm all for the first item I saw on there was the pie, right? Apple pie, whatever. I was like, that'd be great for the pie eating contest against all the selectmen. So I'm all
Still
for it.
pushing
My
that.
only question comes down to make sure we have the proper funding mechanism to make sure we can grab the funds and put them into the right account and everything else. So I know we have that for like the parade and fireworks. Is that set up in the background? Make sure that's done the proper way, so there's no questions down the road. Other than that, that's my only concern. Other than that, this is a great idea. I completely support the community program director and all the functions that she's doing, working with different departments, different places, and what a great response we're getting. Unfortunately, tomorrow night's a little rain out. I don't know what happened to yoga today, but hopefully it all worked out. It's it'll work itself out.
To answer the question, the revolving fund is set up, so we are able to collect the money and put it in the revolving fund. It still requires a town meeting vote for Kylie to actually spend that through the community program director, next year, but it sort of will continue to revolve, right? That's why it's called the revolving fund. So our mechanisms are in place, and we're ready to roll with collecting any funds that we think is appropriate for the functions that or selling cookbooks or whatever it is that Kylie's working on.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So, did we lose Carlos? bear with me here for a second,
He's
guys.
trying to get back in. Hold on.
Okay, all right, thank you. I was gonna say, I don't have a quorum without him, so. So
Told
so I
there
need
he
him.
is.
Carlos, we needed you.
I touched my ear. I'm sorry, I hung up.
Oh, it's all good. No, you're back. It's all good.
Thank
So,
you.
all right, you know, I think, you know, once again, I'll just say, you know, hats off to Kylie and the group and the energy that everyone's putting into it. You know, it's the general theme, right? We were just talking with Rebecca and talking about our excitement of things that she's doing. You know, I love the excitement that's happening in this town. So, let's keep it rolling. So, with that, I entertain a motion to approve the community program director can sell the town cookbook and all the funds will go into the revolving fund.
Motion made.
I will second it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Selectman Lopes,
Yes.
Selectman Zager,
Yes. Agenda item number 13, discussion and vote on adoption of the 9/3/2024 state primary warrant and direct the town clerk to have said warrant duly advertised and posted in accordance with the laws of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and the bylaws of the town of Freetown. So something not as quite as exciting to most of us that we have to talk about versus cookbooks and stuff, but Cheryl, you know, I'm only half joking, no joking really, but you know, do you have any questions or anything you'd like to state in regards to any of this? Sorry.
can't hear you, Cheryl.
Sorry. I'm putting her on the spot. Now we can't hear. Technology at its finest. If you don't have anything, Cheryl, you're good. Okay, all right. So we'll take that. I'm sorry. So yeah, you know, I know it's pretty straightforward as, you know, things have gone on, you know, over and over again, and, you know, it's just another routine that we have to call out, but, you know, I just wanted to, you know, I want to afford Cheryl the right to say something. So that's all. So I do apologize for even trying to drag her into it. So, all right. So, with that, I am going to entertain a motion on adoption of the 9/3/2024 state primary warrant and direct the town clerk to have said warrant duly advertised and posted in accordance with the laws of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and the bylaws of the town of Freetown.
Motion made.
I will second it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Selectman Lopes,
Yes.
Selectman Zager,
Yes. Agenda item number 14. Discussion and vote on tasking the Board of Selectmen to approve a sufficient number of police officers, but no less than one at every polling location, and designate the police chief the authority to assign specific police officers according to scheduling and availability in consultation with the town clerk for the 9/3/2024 state primary. So, you know, kind of the same thing. It's, you know, you can task us, but my biggest concern is obviously that we're getting the input of the town clerk. You know, because she's the one who has to live and breathe this stuff as well as the police chief. You know, and I think it has to be called out in there as such because unfortunately, you know, sometimes they have a harder time getting officers there. So then, you know, we have to have the chief of police have the flexibility to make sure that we have an adequate number of police officers on location. Once again, I know Cheryl can't say anything, but do you have anything?
Well, I know that we've talked in the past, unfortunately, Cheryl can't speak, but, you know, one, and I hope I don't misstate things, but one police officer has to stay with the ballots or stay with, you know, certain stuff, so, I think I'd like to have 2 police officers if possible. Because there's just a lot, you know, and I think this year is going to be a lot of contention and a little bit heightened, issues, I think. So I think if we can afford to have two, and I don't mean financially, but physically, just be able to get the extra police, I would like to have at least two, and then maybe you vote to leave it up to the discretion of the police chief and the clerk.
Yes.
Cheryl
Yeah,
had typed in a comment. Let me just read that for you. She said, we are required one police officer inside. She would like to see the Board of Selectmen require at least another one outside for both September and November, if not additional two.
okay, you know, one of the things is, you know, we've had an issue where we've talked about the school, but the school will be shut down for all of those, right? So we don't have to worry about, you know, that was I'm saying it, knowing it, but you know, because we're not gonna have children at the location at the time of voting. So I do think, with Cheryl's blessing, I do think that two is good, but that being said, you know, if the chief, who am I to vote? If the chief says he wants a third there, then we 100% allow a third to be there. So, you know, we can leave that up to Cheryl and the chief, you know, to deal with on their own, you know, and just obviously keep us informed, but, you know.
Cheryl
Carlos-
did also say in the chat, this is a highly elevated election, especially in November.
Mhm. So,
Uh,
but
No, I concur. I know in years past we had, you know, potentially different groups that were discussing things online, and the police chief decided they needed extra officers. So that doesn't change. The police chief is going to dictate what's needed based on the threat design or mitigation that's needed. Our elections need to be safe and secure. Everyone needs to come out and vote. We have 10,000 people registered. Get out there and vote. But I do have a question after we vote regarding the schools. I'm glad that their schools are going to be shut down. My question is to revolve whether those secondary doors will be installed prior to these votes. Just, I kind of know the answer, but I want to make sure everyone listening knows the answer as well.
So she's saying no, Carlos, but I'm just saying that if we're gonna discuss it, we discuss it before we vote. So, you know, I think, you know, to your point is if we're, you know, that she kind of answered it, but, and Cheryl, do you have any? I don't want to just call out two specific dates. I think that I would want to call out the vote that we have two officers there, with the discretion of, leaving the discretion to, Cheryl and the chief of police. Because I understand her outlook on it, that her outlook on it, that, you know, these are two heightened times, but we don't know what can happen for any other election. And I would hate to restrict ourselves on a vote now and then have to go back and re-vote it and do things. I just think it's cleaner to vote that we have two officers there at all elections for 2024, and then allow the town clerk as well as the chief of police to change, you know, to moderate the numbers if need be. So does that work for you, Cheryl? Yes, okay. Thank
She
you.
did note on here that she's looking for the safety of our voters, residents, and election workers, and
Mhm.
she would like to go election by election. This is just September right now. She will come back in October for an additional vote
Okay.
at that time.
Okay, perfect. All right.
And I just want to say, Selectman Lopes was asking about the doors. We are diligently working on getting those doors cut in as we speak. We've procured the contractors. We have completed all the paperwork. I've spoken to them. They are on it. So let's cross our fingers that there will be this second door at least cut in. Whether the handicap ramp is probably the piece of it that I'm still working on, but I think everybody is on board that by this date, this should be done, which is also, I believe, is the first day of school. I'm not sure, but I think that, no,
The day before the first day of school, right?
well, that's good. So, but I do think the door may be there.
Mhm.
If not for this, by the next one. So fingers crossed, we are diligently working on it.
Thank you. And that's encouraging. So, all right, so,
I do have another comment from Cheryl. She said, or we could do that. I agree, at least two for 2024 September and November elections. If there's no handicap accessible for September, we can't use it.
Right.
Fingers crossed for November.
So to her point, because of it, and shame on me for calling it out as talking about the overall year. We're really talking about this one, which I think is a very valid point on for her. So, I'm just gonna call out for just this one election, and then, we'll come back and do this again in a couple of months. So, so look at that big smile on her face that says it all. So, with that, I will entertain a motion for adoption of the 9/3/2024 state primary warrant and to direct the town clerk to have, oh, wait, I'm sorry, I just lost my place. I'm on agenda item number 14. Yeah, sorry. So, with that, I will entertain a motion for tasking the Board of Selectmen to approve a sufficient number of police officers, which will be 2, at every polling location, and designate the police chief and the authority to the specific police officers accordance to the schedule and availability of the Constitution with the town clerk for 9/3/2024 state primary.
Motion made.
I will second it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Selectman Lopes,
Yes.
Selectman Zager.
Yes. Agenda item number 15, discussion and vote whether to authorize the Council on Aging to utilize FY23 formula grant monies for a new printer for $1,597, B, constitutions for the Tuesday lunch program of $5,000. That's it. So, I think this is something that they've received, right? So there's no burden on the town. They were giving this money, and obviously if you need a new printer, you need a new printer. And the Tuesday lunch program is an overwhelming success from what I've seen when I've been there, and Rebecca showed me and stuff. So, Rebecca, I can only imagine how many people you're up to now.
I think we're almost up to 1,000 meals
Awesome.
since we started.
Wow, that's incredible. It's good and sad all at the same time, and I hope that most of the people are there because it's a social aspect.
Yes, very much so, actually.
Good.
Yeah.
That makes me happy.
Amazing.
Yeah. So with that, I will entertain a motion to approve. I'm sorry. I will entertain a motion to authorize the Council on Aging to utilize FY23 formula grant monies for a new printer for $1,597, and B, constitutions of the Tuesday lunch program for $5,000.
I agree with it. My only question is, it says FY23, but we're in FY25. I'm assuming it carries over.
Yes, it does. We just finished FY22 with some of the things that we've done. And now we're merging into FY23. We haven't even touched FY24. So actually we have about 28,000 left in FY22, and we have about 34,000 in FY23. FY24, I'm sorry. So
Your math checks out.
Yeah, we're doing okay. So yes, you're right. It is FY22. And the printer was for my room. It didn't make sense to replace the one that I had with the old parts that they wanted to replace it with. So we bought one off lease, and the Tuesday lunch program, we're only going to use that money if we don't get any funding from Senator Rodericks before. This was just kind of an in case situation.
So if we don't use that, that's a good point. So if we don't get the money from him, which hopefully we do, will the money go back in? Unused money, will it just stay what will happen with the funding of it. It won't go back.
Yeah,
into it.
no, it'll just stay in the formula grant and we'll use it for something else. We'll use it for chair yoga or drums alive or one of our other programs coming to the pods and I'll ask you guys again. But yeah, no, if we get it, and I also went out for another grant. So if I get the money in any which way or form for the food program, then because the formula grant is so broad. So it'll just go back into FY20. Well, it'll just stay there.
Awesome. No, it's good to hear. I wanted to make sure it wasn't use it or lose it thing, and then, you know.
No.
Thank
So,
you, Rebecca, for explaining that to everyone listening at home and clarifying it for us as well.
Sure.
I make the motion to Jared's entertainment.
I will second it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Selectman Lopes,
Yes.
Selectman
welcome.
Zager,
Yes. Sorry, you cut me off, and I'm glad you did. I will start it. Agenda item number 16, discussion and vote to approve entering the lease agreement for 2 Dodge Durango police cruisers with the All-American Investment Group LLC. So, you know, this is something that we have to do. You know, these cruisers, for lack of better words, take a beating. And, you know, we try to keep up with them. You know, we just need to make sure that the officers are ready to go. So this is pretty straightforward. This is something that we've been doing for a long time. So, you know, I'm looking it over, and it's, you know, it's as straightforward as it goes. So, oh, so you have something?
Yeah, my only question is, one, why Dodge Durango is not a sedan? 2, are these cruisers replacing damaged cruisers from accidents we've occurred, or this is just, you know, wear and tear, things like that? I didn't see that in the notes. So those are my questions.
This is part of the program, like the rotation of the cruises that we do consistently. I do know that one of these, I believe, will replace Detective Shane's vehicle, and that vehicle is gonna be repurposed to the that'll probably come before you, but the plan is to get that to the ACO, whose vehicle is just about, you know, not functioning at this point. The engine light's on, so but these are for wear and tear. Nothing's been damaged. They just have excessive miles on them, and they've got a lot of wear and tear. But just keeping the rotation so that the vehicles don't ever get that old. They just keep rotating them in and out.
And, you know, and to answer your question about the sedans, the reason why, I mean, you gotta look at what we just started this with, right? With, you know, having all these potential threats in town for damage and everything. So I think it really makes sense to put an officer in a car versus that. And, you know, we have a lot of roads that are, you know, during the winter. I understand why you're asking, but I do feel like that it does make sense. You know, that's really where we brought, you know, the town hall vehicles to. We're bringing everything to, because it does make sense based on where we live. So
Next step, we just need some more snow during the winter time.
well, no, we don't want the snow, because then it helps. It makes it easier for us. But yeah, so
Budget wise, no, but as far as aesthetics, it's
Yeah.
aesthetically pleasing to see some snow on the trees.
yeah, and the kids love it. I got you. So I keep losing my spot because I'm going back and forth between. So yeah, I might want to take it. That might make it easier.
Or
So
60.
yeah, she's giving it to me. I'm sorry. So with that, I entertain a motion to approve entering into the lease agreement for 2 Dodge Durango police cruisers with All American Investment Group.
Motion made.
I will second it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Selectman Lopes,
Yes.
Selectman Zager,
Yes. Agenda item number 17, discussion and vote to authorize the interim town, should be the town administrator, to sign documents related to the
Echo.
lease for 2 Dodge Durango police cruisers from All American Investment Group LLC. So for the 3rd time tonight, we're calling out a vote to have Debbie sign something. So, you know, as straightforward as it goes once again, so. With that, I will entertain a motion to authorize the town administrator to sign documents related to the lease for 2 Dodge Durango police cruisers from All American Investment Group LLC.
Motion made.
I will second it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Selectman Lopes,
Yes.
Selectman Zager,
Yes. Agenda item number 18, discussion and vote whether to approve utilizing Bristol County ARPA funds for the match for the DEP asset management grant in the sum of $45,000. So Debbie, is there anything you'd like to say
So-
about this one?
Yeah, so this is a grant that I got for the water department that's gonna map all of their existing infrastructure. So I've been working with the water department, the water, sewer and water commissioners on this. But the grant requires a match in both employee hours and a little bit of funding. So they have voted and we voted at town meeting to use their money out of their reserve fund. But as you know, Bristol County Opera will fund water, sewer, broadband projects, right? So I had told them that I would try to get the actual cash piece. The grant was for, I believe, $200,000, but the actual cash that we have to put in is around $45,000. The rest is grant monies and employee hours. So this is just taking ARPA money to meet that match for the water sewer infrastructure. Because some of the water lines are old and outdated and they're old lines, they don't know exactly where they are. So this is gonna give them a really good as-built plan, and locate some of the structure, so moving forward, if they have an issue, they know where everything is.
Mhm.
So it's just the match piece of it.
So the money that the $45,000 will then stay in their revolving fund is basically because even though the town allocated it, they'll just stay in their
Yeah,
revolving.
it'll stay in their reserve fund,
Reserve fund, that
retained
helps.
earnings, I think
Yeah.
is what it's actually labeled as. So that they can have it there in case they have a break,
Mhm.
and they need to have funds. But in order to get the grant, we had to obligate the whole amount. That's typical with a grant process. We have to say we have all the money to pay, because of course it's a reimbursement grant, so we have to be able to pay up front to get reimbursed, and that's how 90% of the grants are. So that's all this is, and Bristol County ARPA requires your vote in order for me to even apply to them to say, can you give me this money for this project?
And to your point is, we're restricted on what we can use the money for, and so this is something that's within that purview. And their money can stay within them. So I think this is, already been voted on by the town as something they want to do and spend money on. So this is a straightforward vote to me. So anything from you, Carlos, before?
No, you hit the nail on the head. The next few items, actually, the town's already said yes to. So this is just cleaning everything up and going through the wickets of the ABCs of municipality.
Mm-hmm. All right. So with that, I entertain a motion to approve utilizing Bristol County ARPA funds for the match for the DEP asset management grant for the sum of $45,000.
Motion made.
I will second it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Selectman Lopes,
Yes.
Selectman Zager,
Yes. Agenda item number 19, discussion and vote whether to approve using Bristol County ARPA funds to purchase a fire truck in the sum of $85,000. So
let me just tell you what's going on with ARPA. The last 2 applications I put in with Bristol County ARPA were denied. So we're running out of time. All of the money through Bristol County ARPA has to be allocated by September 30th. And not only allocated, but under contract. So I'm running out of time to get the applications now and it took them almost 3 months to deny one of my applications. So I'm really running out of time. So what they have said to me is, I went through everybody else's town applications and they're funding fire trucks, they're funding ambulances. So I am trying to figure out how I'm gonna spend this money. There's about $500,000 left and get it all done at a certain time. So you see, like, this one is one that, again, funding was approved at town meeting, But if I can get the funding from ARPA and we can then, that money will be reallocated and thrown, it'll be put into free cash and we'll vote to use it some other way in the future. I'm trying to just not lose our ARPA money at this point. So this one, the ambulance was also one approved at town meeting, which is one of the next ones. I know the ambulance is a sure ringer for the ARPA money, so I may just put in for that so that I can get the ARPA cleaned up and done. And then the article money will be, we can vote to reallocate it or vote to rescind it, and it will go into our free cash in our coffers for the future. So that's why you see all these different ARPA things, because I'm running out of time. I need to get the applications in. And one of the ones I put in was $300,000 for the municipal fiber. They turned me down for that one, although they said I could reapply under a different category. And then I put in to demolish the red building because it's blight and it has a hazardous waste, you know, with the asbestos. They turned that one down. So I'm just trying to make sure I don't lose the money for the town. And I'm not 100% sure which angle I'm gonna go. So I want to sort of get approvals from the selectmen so I can just apply when I need to, which will happen over the next few days.
Right, and thank you for that clarification. Because I do appreciate the last thing we want to do is lose the money, right?
Right.
So I appreciate your proactive look and saying stuff, you know, these are things that, to your point, the town's already said they're willing to spend money on and that we need, and, you know, so if we can get money in another source and put it back in, amen, it's a win-win, so.
It's sort of like a shell game at this point,
Mhm.
just trying to make sure I secure the money. Which part it comes out of may change, but
Most like it's done by design at the Bristol County level. Deny, deny, deny. Now we have a 60-day window to get these things through, and they take 3 months to reply. So I see your train of thought here, and it makes sense. So let's get all the free money we can get. Not free money, it's taxpayer money. Let's get as much money we can for the town without taking it directly from our residents. So absolutely.
So, thank you for the clarification. I do appreciate that. So with that, I will entertain a motion, to approve using Bristol County ARPA funds, to purchase a fire truck in the sum of $85,000.
Motion made.
I will second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Selectman Lopes,
Yes.
Selectman Zager,
Yes. Agenda item number 20, discussion and vote whether to approve using federal ARPA funds to purchase an office trailer in the sum of $75,000. So this one,
so this is federal ARPA, right? A little different. But one of the things that obviously we've been talking a lot about is space and how limited our space is here, and whether we're gonna use the fire station too, to put some offices in. And of course, we're working on getting a temporary office trailer for or pod, as we call it, for the COA. And I said, maybe we can get a used office trailer. So we started looking at that, Carl, myself, Luann, and we couldn't really find a used one, but we found a new one that's around $71,000. The one that we were looking at is 12 by 40. It would house 2 offices, and we could put that possibly on the side closest to the schoolhouse, and it may help alleviate some of our space issues here. Would not have bathrooms in it, that whoever the officers were there, they'd have to come into this building to use our brand new bathrooms, which are wonderful. So it's just, and then residents who come to the town hall, it doesn't alleviate parking issues clearly, but they wouldn't have to travel across town, and I just may alleviate some of the angst amongst employees who don't really want to move and be away from other departments. And it is, we all are intertwined on some level. So it was another thought that we had, and we have the opera funding to do it, the federal opera funding. So I thought I would ask your permission. Originally, Colin and I were going to go to Oxford and look at a couple of trailers on Tuesday. But then they don't have them there right now. So you can weigh in on what your thought is on this. It's not as much of an emergency as I thought it was going to be, because we have a little more time, but just your thought process of, would that solve, that will definitely help solve our space issues. One of them, not solve it. I wouldn't say it's not going to solve our space issues, it's going to make it a little bit easier.
and I think that, you know, we haven't learned anything in the past. It's that buildings take a while to build, right? So this, to your point, is it kind of puts a Band-Aid on something. and not for nothing, it keeps the employees happy and residents, right? Because what did we, the last meeting, we really had a lot of conversation in regards to what departments can we possibly move over to the fire station, because it's on the other side of town, and we didn't want someone coming in here to find out that they needed to go to another department that's, 20 minutes away, 15 minutes away. So this keeps everyone here and accessible. And then, I think it will help us. One of my big upsides to all this is by putting a couple of departments in there, we maybe can rework some stuff. And then some of the departments that are upstairs that aren't handicap accessible, it makes them easier. So right now we have, Carl having to go downstairs because someone came in and they can't come upstairs. So this helps eliminate some of that. And I'm not saying it happens all the time, but unfortunately it does happen. And so I do see this as a win, a temporary win, yes. But nonetheless a win. And the only downside I see to it is the aesthetics of it, right? Unfortunately, it's a trailer that's on the side of the town hall that a lot of people take pride in, myself included, and the schoolhouse. But unless someone has a way to get us a building built and done and for a very small amount of money really fast, I don't see that happening. So I just think that this is the best option.
No, I agree. We have a space constraint. We've been saying it for years. We've tried different methods, from buying corner lots to renting or leasing office buildings and everything else. My only question comes up. I'm sure some might ask the question, so I'll ask it for them. Is there any other use for that $75,000 other than this office space? Can we use it for anything else?
Oh, sure. I mean, there's always a use, right? It's the municipal utility that, right? We've talked about many different uses for the money. So yes, I have applications and I haven't looked at everything, but I mean, we have applications for a loader. We have applications, we've talked about doing improvements to parks. There are definitely other things. I would like to have all the files digitalized, which will cost some money. So yes, are there other things that we could use the funding for? Sure. Are there other things more important than this? I don't believe so. I think that space is, it's become very critical. And when you talk about putting a Band-Aid, I want to say, no, it's like a tourniquet, because we're bleeding at the seams here. If we don't come up with a solution, I don't have any other solution for the problem. And it's getting worse. I mean, you can't even walk in our basement. It's so full, and the basement's in the floodplain. It's damp, it's wet. We have our equipment down there. Cheryl can't put any files down there. It's not conducive for that. Anywhere else is not conditioned. So there are vital records that can't be stored in certain places. We recently have moved the planning down to the first floor, so that at least that now that attic space that's not conducive for office is now at least some storage. So we were able to get that accomplished. But we're just, I mean, think about 4 people in an office that's about 12 by 14 trying to talk on the phone all at the same time. It's just not conducive to business. People, the employees of the town of Freetown, I have to say, have not really complained to the extent, but they're putting up with it, and we want to show them that we're trying. Like, we are trying. I am trying. I can tell you, I am trying. I understand, but they do it. They're troopers. They keep on plugging along, but there becomes a point, like literally we're sitting on boxes. What do you do? I don't know. So this is something that both Carl and I thought, oh, this might be, again, short-term fix, municipal world, 5 years. But and even one office trailer won't give me everything I need.
No.
And just so you know, like Carl, he measured it. It's 100 by 24 is the space over there. So the trailer we were looking at is 40 by 12. Will give us 2 offices. I mean, if I could find 2 of them, I would like to put 2 of them over there, and because that's how much space I need. And I still don't think it would solve all of our problems, but it would make breathing room for some of the employees.
I I agree to your point that, you know, employees can only take so much for so long, and it's not fair to them to, you know, live amongst clutter. And I say clutter because they have nowhere else to put the stuff, so it becomes clutter. You know, and I look at it as a win. You know, I don't want to keep going back on my own, you know, what I just said, but, you know, we can make it more accessible for the town residents. You know, we do have an elderly population that, you know, will come here if they need something. It's not fair to make them climb up these stairs. Yeah, so, you know, as well as handicap accessible, you know, and it's just, so that stuff, there's no easy fix. And then, you know, we've looked at stuff and, you know, as we had just talked about, the fire chief did give us some, you know, he was gracious enough to say we can take over that space, but that will be even more expensive and take even longer. So, and still push the people to the other side of town. So I just see this as the easiest, cheapest way to solve a problem that needs to be fixed. Like I said, my biggest problem with it all is aesthetics, right? From the looks, it's two things, and I'm just being honest. It's aesthetics and it's parking. Something you just mentioned, right? You know, this time of year isn't big of a deal, but during the winter and stuff, if employees are having to park off site or residents, it's not fair to them to have to walk through the cold or the snow or ice, you know, whatever. So, even the rain, right? I mean, you know, employees have gotten used to parking outside here and walking in, and now, you know, they're having to park way up the road because unfortunately we do park some vehicles over there. So, you know, there'll still be some other, this isn't the end all be all, that's for sure. I just think it's a way to put a tourniquet on it, you know?
Now, is this under the September 30th deadline as well?
No,
Fiscal
so
year for the federal government?
federal offer is, has to be obligated, which means we have to have a contract or a purchase order by December 31st. So yeah, not the same deadline.
But still nonetheless a deadline that we need to hit. It's use it or lose it, so.
Right. You hit my heartstrings. I'm a hater of stairs myself, so
Yeah.
anything we can do to avoid stairs, especially for the individuals such as our elderly and handicapped individuals, people with disabilities, I'm all for it. Yeah, it doesn't solve everything, but it gives us some breathing room for offices and everything else versus going off-site. So great solution, great way of using federal ARPA funds to our advantage.
All right, so yeah, I think that one's good. So with that, I will entertain a motion to approve using federal ARPA funds to purchase an office trailer in the sum of $75,000.
Motion made.
I will second it. All those in favor?
Selectman Lopes,
Yes.
Selectman Zager,
Yes. Agenda item number 21, discussion and vote whether or not to use Bristol County ARPA to purchase a new ambulance in the amount of $500,000. So I really don't need to go into this one because Deb just gave us a great explanation as to why we put it in there as such. So with that, I will entertain a motion to use Bristol County ARPA funds to purchase a new ambulance in the amount of $500,000.
Motion made.
I will second it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Selectman Lopes,
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Selectman Zager,
Yes. Agenda item number 22, discussion and vote whether to authorize the town administrator to utilize the balances in Bristol County and federal ARPA funds at her discretion rather. So, you know, once again, to what she just stated was really, you know, I think so that we're not holding her to a certain one or another. She can, you know,
Mix and match.
mix and match and say, okay, I'm gonna use some for the ambulance, I'm gonna use some for the fire truck. But at the end of the day, do everything we can to make sure that we use the funding. So, you know, I don't have a problem with it. I think we've beaten all these things up so much in the past, and you know, as a town, and you know, as a board, B, really with what needs to be done, and you know, these are this is pieces of equipment mostly, right? That's coming to us, and it's stuff that's going to be needed. So I don't have a problem with her using her discretion, and she's obviously always been very open with us as to what she's doing. She's not trying to just do something on her own, so. I don't have an issue with this at all.
Yeah, fact of the matter is we've discussed this at length, right? We have time constraints between Bristol County and federal ARPA. We've been denied different applications, given her the authority and discretion based on pretty much what's on our whiteboard right in front of you. Pretty much where we're trying to get through here, and having one less step, we will still have some oversight on it because she works with us hand and foot every single day. So removing the burden of having to come to us prior to submitting an application is great way of doing business and moving things forward, especially when we have a less than 60-day timeline for the Bristol County.
Yeah, absolutely. And great call out. And I guess that's what I was trying to say. It was, I didn't want people to think that we're just, handing everything over to her and, whatever. So, and not that we can't, but it's just saying that, it does make sense to do it as such. So, with that, I entertain a motion to authorize the town administrator to utilize the balances in Bristol County and federal ARPA funds at her discretion.
Motion made.
I will second it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Selectman Lopes,
Yes.
Selectman Zager,
Yes. Agenda item number 23, discussion and vote whether to authorize adding space to the map room at the town hall. So to Deb's point, we've had the people who are upstairs on the third floor, they're now down into the map room, but there's a jog in of how much roughly?
It's about 30 inches, I think.
30 inches. So yeah, so almost 3 feet, 2.5 feet. And I think if we can do anything, all we're doing is taking a little bit of space from the hall, and it actually continues the wall going straight rather than jogging in. Right now, that office is only housing one person, but down the road will probably house 2. So 30 inches is a lot of additional space. And we'll take any square inch we can get in this building based on all the conversation we've already had, right? And it's as simple as moving a wall. So I see this one as a no-brainer to make it happen. And it's a cheap enough fix, right? It's literally moving a wall. So it's not a big deal.
No, yeah, you're absolutely correct. This is one that, gosh, I think from day one as the personnel chair, more space, and yes, let's use the space we have available to us to make room for actual employees and not just files.
Mhm.
So yes, and yes.
All right. So with that, I entertain a motion to authorize adding the space to the map room at the town hall.
Motion made.
I will second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Selectman
So-
Lopes,
Yes.
Selectman Zager,
Yes. I'm now gonna kick it over to Selectman Lopes for personnel board.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. All right, item agenda 24, discussion and vote whether to appoint Connor P. Bailey as signal operator, full-time, effective 8/5/2024 through 6/30/2024. Connor, Mr. Bailey, is a person that went through the hiring process and was selected to take on this position. So everything looks good. Applications in place. This is just adding to the robust team we have there now. So I'm
Right.
happy to have him on board.
So my only question is, should that be 6/30/25? Because right now we're saying he's being hired for negative time. So,
good catch.
Yeah, you're correct on that. Good catch. Good catch on that. So, yes, I'll when I make the motion, entertain the motion, I'll make sure to update that to 6/30/2025. Great
yeah,
catch.
and that's why I called it out, so that we didn't do it and then have to come back to redo it. So thank you.
Perfect. I intend motion to appoint Connor P. Bailey as signal operator full-time effective 8/5/2024 through 6/30/2025.
Motion made.
All in favor?
You gotta second it.
Second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Selectman Lopes,
Yes.
Selectman Zager,
Yes.
Thank you, Jared. All right. So item agenda 25, discussion of vote whether to hire another truck driver for the highway department. So for those out there listening along, we hire, we retire, everything in between of all those things. Everyone always tells us how great our highway department is, and this is why, because we're hiring individuals for need versus wants. This is a need. highway surveyor has come to us asking for another truck driver, and here we are.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
any questions, discussions?
One of the reasons why I put that on there is the makeup of the highway department has been like traditionally a little bit different. A couple of laborers, maybe one truck driver, a couple equipment operators. He's not asking to hire another laborer. He's asking to hire a truck driver. So he's got funding for it because somebody had left. So that was all. I just want to make sure that the makeup of the highway department is okay.
That's straightforward to me.
I mean, I think one of the problems is snow plowing, right? We don't get the independent contractors like we used to, so he needs a truck driver to work throughout the year, but also to help snow plow. So he's got the extra hands on deck.
All good
We
with
just
me.
need that snow. All right. Seems like we're in agreement here. So let's entertain the motion to hire another truck driver for the highway department.
Motion made.
I second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Selectman Lopes,
Yes.
Selectman Zager.
Yes.
Selectman Zager, were you saying something?
No, I almost said something and I stopped myself, so I apologize.
Oh, roger that. All right, moving on. Item agenda 26, discussion and vote whether to approve the job description for special police officer known as SPO. So as you can see from the agenda packet we received, it's quite of a detailed description. And one of the things we struggle with, I hate to say struggle, but one of the things we come across our desk from time to time is staffing of details from different things we do in town. Earlier we talked about having events and things like that. So this is one of those areas that a special police officer could fill in as a detail versus having a on-duty or active duty police officer. So it's pretty well described as far as who can and can't be a SPO or a special police officer. You know, one, you have to be sure you're a former police officer in the town of Freetown or a former police officer, so on and so forth. That you're qualified, your arms qualified. So you're maintaining everything that you've had while as an active duty police officer. But now the biggest difference is you're retired. Now you can come back and work for the town during special assignments such as traffic duty and things such as summer council series or, you know, pie eating contest between the selectmen, so on and so forth. I'm going to keep pushing that until
I was going to say, you push that any chance you get. Oh, that's
So,
Stop.
great.
I'm doing it in my office. We're gonna have pie eating.
I'm all for it. Deb, did I miss anything on that? It's pretty straightforward description as far as what we're looking for. Chief Rose has done a great job putting the description in place for the SPO, and this just helps alleviate the burden of work-life balance between our officers and life. Right? They all have families, and having the SPO program in place alleviates some of the burdens of trying to take on too much overtime, take on additional duties, and also try and carry on the town and making sure all these events that we're putting out there happen safely. Does that pretty much capture everything?
Yeah, it's a no-brainer, right? Like we just talked about when we were in here talking about the elections and different things and how we had to put that in there because of getting police officers, right? And they're human just like us, and they only want to work so much. And so if we have someone in there that can do something to help eliminate some of the stress from them, so to speak, I'm all about it. It's just, straightforward to me. So yeah.
Likewise. All right. Well, I'll entertain a motion to approve the job description of special police officer SPO.
Motion made.
I second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Selectman Lopes,
Yes.
Selectman Zager.
Yes.
All right. Moving on. Item agenda 27. Discussion and vote whether to approve the job description for town planner. So, for those of you watching along, we have discussed a lot about all these ARPA funds, whether they're federal or Bristol County, the Council of Aging, different funds. So all these funds require someone to manage these funds. Getting the funds is the simple part, right? Anybody that's ever written a grant will tell you getting the grant is the easiest thing in the world. maintaining the grant is the hardest part. And this is where the town planner really comes into play, is to make sure that these grants are not only functioning, but on time, on delivery, and make sure that now we're getting penalized anywhere down the road as far as a financial burden. Right? Does this come at a cost of the town? Sure, we're adding an employee, but really we have it's at this point it's needed, right? We're having the town administrator taken away from her day-to-day operations to make sure these grants are working 100%. Having the town planner is better suited for that position versus the town administrator, which is everything under the sun, advising the board of selectmen and all the other boards and committees in town. Having a planner, again, this is for a job description. Not saying we're hiring anybody. This is for the job description for the planner. I think is a necessary need for the town.
I couldn't agree more, and this does a couple of different things. It allows, because not to take away from what they're doing and getting the grants, because the grants aren't always just clear cut. You fill out this information, you get it. As Debbie just alluded to, she applied for stuff, and here's someone who's done a lot. Generated this town millions of dollars in grants, and we're still getting denied on stuff, right? So having someone there that can take care of this stuff and have that be their main focus, as well as follow up. And to your point, and something else that I really look at is, how do we take stuff off of her plate and let her focus on what her job's supposed to be? I think giving clear direction to people, and to your point, this is just a description. This doesn't mean that we're hiring someone for this position, but it's just a description. But I think it's a positive step in the right direction. So I'm all about it. I read the job description, and I think it's great. So yeah.
No, I agree. Yeah, right now we're not only we talk a lot about office space as far as being a need. The work balance is not really balanced, right? It's work, and there's no balance. And having this position in place for it to come to fruition down the road creates some equilibrium, a little bit of balance between the grant process. Like you alluded to, we have millions of dollars of grants out there, millions, right? That's helped save the taxpayer here, our residents here in Freetown, millions of dollars, but things that we need, right? But having someone there managing it is the proper way forward. And Deb's far too busy with a million other things to deal with this on the day-to-day. She'll still be involved, but not to the level she's at now. Again, it's all about balance, and this creates that balance.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm good with that.
All right, I entertain the motion to approve the job description for the town plan.
Motion made.
I second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Selectman Lopes,
Yes.
Selectman Zager.
Yes. So this is a little bit awkward in a sense, but because we're virtual, but I am in town hall. So I'm actually gonna sign documents now on camera. So yeah, you guys get to watch me sign documents.
And it wasn't sure how we were gonna do that.
So
It's your warrant for the election. About the funds. You have to sign the lease.
Deb to sign.
Deb to sign. Warren Bailey's job, appointment slip.
We
Yeah,
did
that's the
that
2020.
a lot of
Okay.
that me to sign because we knew it was gonna be a virtual meeting.
Right.
We appreciate you coming in, Jared.
Yeah, I really didn't have a choice. It was a technical glitch. So there was a panic in a run down here. Thankfully, they were here. So yeah.
Surplusing that broken desk. Or it kills someone. This is the police department's surplus item for Berkeley. Town administrator to sign on paving and milling. Administrative assignment. Okay.
Transit fantasy.
There
Right, so I think we're good. Any other last final things from anyone? No? All right. So thank you, and I entertain a motion to adjourn.
Nice. Motion made.
I will second it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye,
Selectman Lopes,
Yes.
Selectman Zager.
yes. Thank you and have a good night, buddy. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody.